Welcome to Reparenting Daily, your free daily guide for inner child healing and repairing the relationship with yourself. This podcast helps you establish a consistent reparenting routine and is divided into 3 sections. The first is a daily reading, the second is a discussion of that reading, followed by suggested journal prompts, and the last section is a peaceful binaural beats meditation for closing. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening from whenever and wherever you're joining us. I'm so glad that you can join us for this journey of self-expansion. If this is your first time, welcome. As a celebration of completing our first full year of Reparenting Daily episodes, I've opened a free membership tier for the Patreon community so that you can access more resources and join weekly Zoom calls for free. I understand there's a lot going on in the world right now, and I know that many people are really struggling. My hope with this is to encourage others to still pick up the work of reparenting and offer a free community where people can come together and do that. I'd also like to thank all of you who've been along on the journey so far. Just as a reminder, this is a free podcast, but you can support the project by purchasing the Reparenting Daily journal where you can follow us along all year. This 333-page journal gives you extra insight and resources for each week, and it also provides space for you to keep your notes. Another way to support the podcast is to purchase the Fairy Tales for Reparenting series, volumes 1 through 3. This collection organizes famous and obscure fairy tales from around the world into 3 phases of the hero's journey, beginning, middle, and end. And while you might think that fairy tales are for kids, I'd like to challenge you here. These stories contain profound truths and lessons carried down over millennia that we can use to integrate in our reparenting journey. It's a fun way to connect with your inner child. Each volume contains 10 fairy tales. They include an analysis section to help you dive deeper into the message, as well as journal prompts to reflect on the story's meaning for your own life. Lastly, you can also support the podcast by taking a paid Patreon subscription, purchasing the books on the website, or by donating to Buy Me a Coffee. You can find all this information on the supporter section of the website. And so with these announcements out of the way, let's dive into today's practice. Today, we're going to be listening to a portion of a podcast entitled The Fear of Being Yourself. This is by Dr. Aziz, who hosts the Shrink for the Shy Guy podcast. I think I've shared one portion of his podcast episodes before, and I thought this was a really interesting episode to share with you today. In light of this week's theme, by the way, we're in March, and the theme is building self-trust and confidence. We're in week 2, and the theme is keeping promises to yourself. So, how does the fear of being yourself fit with this week's theme? Well, I think you will see as we listen to this episode. But more importantly, the fear of being yourself is what will keep you restricted. It what keeps you functioning in the false self persona that is a result of your toxic family dynamic. And if you're never allowing yourself to be yourself, you will never be able to attract the right people and circumstances and situations into your life. You will be constantly against life, trying to battle life's challenges with a false persona. And so we will discuss or hear a bit more about how he explains, and we'll discuss later. So without further ado, here is Dr. Aziz.
What if the real reason that you hold back and soften what you want to say or try to overthink it so you come across the right way isn't actually because of a lack of confidence? But what if it's actually deep down, somewhere in there, there's a belief that if you're just you, as you are, who you are, you won't be liked. And I don't mean just misunderstood or they don't agree with me. I mean like fundamentally rejected. Today, we're going to be diving into this and talking about the hidden fear that quietly shapes how so many people live their lives and how that fear of being fully yourself around others actually ends up costing us the belonging that we really want. So welcome to today's episode of the show. I'm excited to be with you because this is something that became absolutely clear. I mean, I've seen this for years in my own life working with clients, but it was just again and again, I saw it all weekend long. I was teaching a 3-day virtual workshop called Not Nice Live. And one of the key recurring patterns that became clear was, okay, I'm doing this thing, being nice, being people pleasing. Maybe sometimes people go into what I call performance mode, where we hyper drive and think through, okay, I got to say this text and how am I going to say this? And I got to say it just right. And okay, how am I looking right now? Am I looking good? Am I doing this right? Right? All of that is actually coming from a deeper fear. It's like a reaction to a fear. It's our strategy to try to deal with this underlying fear. And the fear is what I said at the beginning of this episode, right? It's like, me. And so this is the core shift that we have to make to really set ourselves free, is to see that, all these stories I have about myself, I'm not attractive enough, I'm not smart enough, I'm not rich enough, I'm not this kind of person, I should be that kind of person. Like,
from workout, are you done with your
be that kind of person? Like, all of that is actually stemming out of this fear. And what I'm going to illuminate in this episode is what we do to try to protect from that fear, solve for that, quote, problem of me being me, which is not very good, I guess. That all that we do to try to solve that problem actually backfires and prevents us from getting what we really want. So what do we really want? Well, we probably have a lot of different goals in life, but ultimately, one of the core desires that all people have is to connect with other people, to feel a sense of belonging. And so that means we might want friends and close friendships. You might want a partner, or have a romantic love. You might want to ultimately create a family or be connected with your family, right? Like, you have other goals in life, but very few people are like, I just want a pile of money and 0 humans that know and love me. Maybe some people have that goal, but most of us are like, yeah, I want some people in there too. It's kind of lonely on my pile of money. And so we want love and connection. Right? We want that belonging. But, afraid not. The metaphor I use for this is the old 3 of clubs, right? It's like you got Delta poker hand, or maybe it's a 2-7 in Texas Hold'em, where you get, everyone's looking at their hand, and if you don't play Texas Hold'em, 2-7 is basically 2-7 offsuit is the worst hand you can get. But if you play any sort of poker, just imagine a bad poker hand, like a 2, a 3, a 6. It's not a straight. It's not a flush. Can't do much with it. There's no pairs. Ugh, got a bad hand, and that's what a lot of us feel like. I got dealt this bad hand, and so what do I do? And you might have reasons why you think it's a bad hand, like, oh, look, I'm not tall enough, and oh, look, I don't look like this, and oh, look, my parents told me this when I was young, and they're right, I suck. So you might have reasons you can point to. You might not even have reasons. It might just be a vague feeling and this raw fear that somehow I'm not enough, I don't belong, I don't fit in. But somewhere along the way, we pick this up. There's some deeper origins of that I could explain perhaps in future episodes, but regardless, here it is. I got it now. And then a lot of our lives becomes about adapting and figuring out how to work with this crappy hand that I got dealt. And the essence of it is, because I got this losing poker hand, I can't belong. I won't belong. People won't really like me for me. And again, it's like, observe in your own life. This is not something that people walk around consciously saying, but you feel it, which is why you feel nervous before a conversation, before a date, before speaking up, before sharing, before revealing yourself, before being authentic, before disagreeing with somebody, before saying no. Because if I am just me and say what I really think and feel and what I really want or don't want, I'm just transparent, I'm just honest, I'm not hiding, I'm not pretending, I'm not performing, I'm not perfecting, I'm just me, you're going to say, oh, well, ugh, is that all you got? And that's what's there? I don't want anything to do with that. And so we have a strategy, a scheme that we cook up. And the scheme is like, well, this ain't going to work. And what we're pointing to is ourselves. This thing ain't going to cut it. So what do we do? I guess we improve this thing. And then so people try to improve themselves. Typically, okay, I'm going to look better. I'm going to earn more. I'm going to improve. That's kind of maybe a common self-development motivator, personal development. I'm going to learn winning strategies, body language of confidence, and how to stand right, how to talk right, how to look right, performance tips, speaking tips. And I'm going to really polish my persona. And look, there's nothing wrong with if you want to become a better speaker or stand taller or whatever. I mean, posture is great. It's good for you. But if it's coming from this place of this inner deficit, and I have to compensate to make up for this fatal flaw, then we're doomed. And I know, because I lived that for many, many, many years. Really, really believed like this guy Aziz is a loser. And I'll give you some reasons, and then other ones are just kind of vague, but I feel it. I can sense it. Feel it in my bones. And so we come up with this persona, and we either strive and strive and strive, and maybe we feel at first like we're getting there, but then eventually we're like, I don't think I can't do it. I'm not perfected enough yet. And then we just try our best to pretend, to hide, to accommodate, to make it look like we are. And then we really ultimately just settle into a chronic mask. showing the world who we're supposed to be. And underneath, we're terrified of letting ourselves be seen and known. And so we, instead of optimizing for being seen and known, for being honest, for truth, we optimize for being liked, for being approved of, for avoiding disapproval. And then we do that hustle. And then one of two things happens. And they're both bad, by the way, unfortunately. It works or it doesn't. And so if it works, you might say, wait, isn't that great? I got love. I got the raise. I got my performance tips worked. And everyone thinks I'm great at work. Okay. Well, what I found happens, and tell me if this is true in your experience, is that person who performed well at work happens to be riddled with imposter syndrome and is very anxious underneath. They're going to get found out. The person that got the date feels very anxious about getting the second date. And they overthink their texts and they try to make sure, oh my God, I'm really into this person. Now it's especially awful. What could happen now? Could lose it all. They could find out who I am. And that's what led me to have a repetitive pattern of when I overcame my initial social anxiety and learned how to approach women and date, I would do that and then I would retreat. I would freak out if we actually got past the first, month or something being together and we were going to spend more time together and I was going to be more of just me, this guy. Ugh. I ran out of material. Here I am. I'm just going to show up like this, I guess. And I didn't even know at the time what this was that was so bad. It was just this vague background pressure and sense that, well, whatever it is, it ain't going to cut it. And so either it works, but then we're anxious and it feels very brittle, or it doesn't work. And then we conclude, it's not working. I don't have the love, connection, success that I want because of this fatal flaw, because of this 3 of clubs hand I got in poker. You see, evidence, proof, it's over, doom. And when I work with someone in this state, I say, maybe you're right. Maybe you're doomed. How old are you, by the way? And then they'll be like a little confused by that question because it's kind of out of left field. And I was like, I don't know, I'm 40. Like, okay, all right, that's good. And how old do you think you're gonna live to? And that's always an interesting question because I don't know how we come up with that answer. We're like, well, how old do my parents live to? Or what's the average age of the male or female human in the population? Okay, and then if you want a little bit of extra bump, you just add a few years to it. You're like, the average man lives to 74. I'm really healthy, so probably 80, 85. Just give myself a little bit of extra years there, maybe. But whatever, they tell me something. And it's usually a ways out. No one says, I got 3 years left, man. Say, I don't know. Well, just give me a number. What do you think? I don't know, 70 or 80? Okay, all right. So you're 40. And so if we just throw in the towel now, and you just got another 30 or 40 years of just doing what you're doing, how's that feel? And they're like, ugh. I'm like, yeah, it feels pretty depressing to me too. What are you going to do? Ride it out? That's a long, slow slope, man. Because what I'm highlighting here is that there's a part inside of your head that says, this is how it is. This is who I am. No one could actually love me for who I am. That's not how the world works. That's not how men are. That's not how women are. You can't make it in the world if you act like or are like me. And so I got to do this thing. And in essence, you've given up potentially for the rest of your life on being you. Whoa, let's let that sink in for a minute, because that is depressing. And you know what? It's actually extremely common. That's why Bronnie Ware, the hospice nurse, in her book, The 5 Regrets of the Dying, listed it as the number 1 regret of the dying. I wished I'd lived a life true to myself, the life I wanted, not the life that other people wanted of me. Basically, they were being who they were supposed to be, being somebody else for other people. And so a lot of people lock into that. It's not like they do it at the very end of their life. They kind of locked into that at age, well, maybe the whole time. It's the default path. If we don't challenge something, if we don't fundamentally defy repeatedly that voice in your head that says, this is just how it is. No one could like you. No one could like you. And so the way out is risk. Ultimately, the risk to be real, the risk to be yourself. And that's what I'm doing when I work with people. That's the containers I create, the mastermind and coaching with people, is being in these environments where we receive that support and guidance and practice on how to do it, and do it again and again and again. And people will take a risk and then they'll come back and say, like, it went great. They liked me. And then they'll come back another week. Like, I took a risk. It was awful. They didn't like me. Or it's everything in between. I took a risk and the person liked me and now I'm anxious about keeping it going. Or whatever it is. So it's not about one singular event. I think that's when a lot of people hear this, like, oh, I got risk to be me. Okay, fine. Fine. I'll do it. I'll try it. But then we got all these eggs riding on one basket, one moment. It's like Eminem, right? You got one chance, one moment. Don't miss your shot. And then I go talk to this person. They're like, I don't want to talk to you. Oh! Went down in flames. That was my shot. It's over. You see? Unlovable. But here's the thing. all the stuff that we do to try to make ourselves more lovable, right? The performance, the polishing ourselves, the persona, the being who you want me to be, all that, the real reason why we're doomed is not because we're not lovable. We're doomed when we buy into that story and then we live as this persona and how we're supposed to be, because even if people like you, you won't actually feel the true love and belonging, because the real belonging that you want to experience will only come when you take the risk to be seen and known as you are, for who you are. And as you do it, that voice in your head is going to say, don't do it, it's over, you're going to ruin it, how could they love you, it's awful. And the only way to build real confidence, I'm not talking about false confidence where you feel good because you lived up to your image for a day, or you got externally validated because someone gave you a high five or a kiss because you lived that image, but real confidence, solid self, knowing who you are, living your values, being authentic, owning who you are, enjoying who you are, living the life that you're actually meant to live, that kind of confidence, which means you do have all kinds of stuff. You have quirks and flaws and weird conflicting parts of you and scared parts and greedy parts and anxious stuff going on and weird habits and some old patterns you're trying to change. And you're just like this imperfect, evolving human creature, just like every one of us. And you have the courage to bring that forward. That's how we actually experience real belonging. And so that's my invitation for you as your action step, is to take that risk. And it doesn't have to be some crazy leap. I'm going to unveil everything. No, just in this moment, you unveil a little bit more about a preference you have, what you want or what you don't want. Or you say something a little more clearly and not so overly softened and hedged so that no one can ever be upset with you. Or you say no and have a boundary and let the other person have some feelings. Right? Whatever it is, you just take that risk to be a little bit more real in this moment, whatever that is happening in this moment, and you do it, and you say it, and you share it, and you're who you are. And then you work with that part inside that's like, oh, that's it, we're all going to die. And you get to the other side and realize, oh, I did not die. And then we do it again. Beautiful. Thanks for being with me today. Until we speak again, may you have the courage to be who you are and to know on a deep level that you're awesome.
Hey guys, welcome back. I hope you enjoyed this episode with Dr. Aziz of his podcast, Shrink for the Shy Guy. You can, as always, find the link in the show notes if you'd like to check out more. Again, as we come back now to the theme of this week, keeping promises to yourself. Obviously, this all relates to the March theme of building self-trust and confidence, right? The capacity to be who you actually are and to stop sacrificing yourself, your needs, your self-expression for the benefit of other people, which is people-pleasing. Your refusal to take up space, your refusal to let your voice be heard, your refusal to set down the false persona and to allow your true self to come through. Now, as he mentioned, there are some social, I dare not say standards, but expectations that are normal that you might have to adjust for, but that should not be to the point that your entire being is compressed, oppressed, and suppressed, right? In order to exist, in order to find peace and contentment, in order to be able to get your needs met, in order to achieve a feeling of belonging, you have to be your true self, because if you're not, and if you're only gaining belonging from a false persona or performance, you will always have that imposter syndrome, and it's not really going to get to the core issue, so those underlying emotions will still be there. No matter how much you try to gaslight yourself. And so that's why it's so important to keep the promise to yourself, to allow yourself to be the priority. Your priority is you, your self-expression, your existence. Now, again, if someone who was listening to this, who didn't grow up in a dysfunctional family, they might hear that and think, oh my gosh, that's so selfish, that's so narcissistic, that's so greedy, that's so, because we are supposed to be naturally using our talents to help others. That's the natural way of life. But when you grew up in a dysfunctional family, you did not get to develop that self and those gifts in order to be able to spread with other people. So your way of connecting with people, as opposed to sharing your natural gifts, is people pleasing. And so that's definitely the wrong solution. So we need to take a step back. And it requires a different perspective that other people might not see as orthodox. And another example of this exact phenomenon is going outside of your comfort zone. So people who grew up in safe, supportive families with friends with positive memories and experiences and so forth, reinforcing their groundedness and identity and stuff like that, their challenge would be to go outside of their comfort zone to push and challenge themselves. But for people who grew up in that chaos, then, our challenge is to find and build the comfort zone because we've lived outside the comfort zone, right? And so this is the kind of thinking and logic, right? So it's not like be a bad person, be greedy, be selfish. I mean, you do have to be selfish, to be honest. You do have to be more narcissistic. You need to build up your own narcissistic supplies within yourself when you're coming from this family that has crunched you down. Because you can also come from a dysfunctional family and end up being a narcissist. But I'm talking about those people who have been compressed, depressed, literally depressed, because you're not expressing yourself. That is what depression is, a lack of self-expression. That's one of the ways it comes about. Not a fucking chemical imbalance in your brain. It's a lack of self-expression and a lack of your needs being met, right? And so when you're taking a pill for your lack of self-expression, that's not going to help you because most of those pills, what is the one that begins with an S? I mean, it doesn't really matter. Many of them, for example, they have really bad side effects. Some of them cause you to gain a lot of weight. Some of them destroy your sex drive. And so both of those two is an attack on your self-expression. The decrease in your sex drive and the decrease in your taste for food, for example, or appetite, that's a decrease in your self-expression, which is going to actually increase the cause or the root issue, which is the depression. It's not going to really solve it. That's why you have to keep staying on it to cover it up. It's just like trying to cover up something as opposed to going to the source to fix the problem, right? And so this is what I wanted to share with you guys in terms of this episode. The fear of being yourself, how that aligns with recognizing and accepting the God within you, the God presence within you, as Rev Ike says. You cannot fear being yourself. That means that you are too concerned about what other people think. And now, of course, we do have to, the world is a stage, right? Life is a costume party. And so you have to be mindful, but you have to still stay in touch and at least be aware of and recognize and accept your true self. I'm not saying that you just go be 100% authentic everywhere, because that's definitely not the way that the world works, but at least with yourself. Because if you're not even authentic with yourself, you'll never have the capacity to make effective decisions, because you'll be making decisions off of a foundation that's not even who you actually are, And so it's so important that we keep our promise to ourselves, to allow ourselves to be ourselves as we move through the March month, focusing on building self-trust and confidence. Do you have enough self-trust to let yourself be yourself? Your confidence is built every time you allow yourself to be yourself. Another way of saying this is not necessarily the authentic or the false persona or the true self. It's more like, because again, we discussed that, the world is a stage, life is a costume party, these things, we've heard it before. But you have to have some groundedness by which to make effective decisions in this world. And if you're out of touch with your authentic self, you're not going to be able to make those decisions. You're not going to be able to strategically adapt and adjust your external presentation, your performance, your social performance, in order to be able to achieve the objectives that you want. In order to do that effectively, which is one of the main points of life, right? To manipulate energy to bring about your desires. And so, again, I say manipulation not in a bad way, but it is why we are here on earth. We are energy beings here to express ourselves, and we do that through the influence of energy. And if you don't have that solid core and you're dysfunctioning from people pleasing, all your decisions will not be coming from center place, So it's not, the fear of being yourself is not, being 100% authentic with every single person you meet. It's having a grounded core from which you can make effective decisions, including adjusting your social presence. And so I hope that you enjoyed that, and I'll be sharing some more from him because I really loved how this fit with this episode or with this week's theme, but in a bit of a strange way, like you wouldn't naturally think that. And so thanks for joining me here on this episode. I'll bring back some other snippets from Dr. Aziz, because he's a really talented therapist who is not just someone who's, has a PhD, but he's someone who's actually lived the experience of the people that he's helping, right? So when you hear him talk, he has a different way of really being authentic and connecting with you and helping you see and understand and work towards a solution of the problem, So important, because most therapists just think they can go and study a book and then they can go help someone who has CPTSD, but they've never even had depression, or PTSD. So that's kind of foolish, If you have CPTSD, you cannot go to any therapist who has not also experienced CPTSD, because that therapist will have no idea how to connect or help you, because we can only meet each other as deeply as we've met ourselves. And someone who hasn't had CPTSD has no understanding of what we go through in our lives and on a daily basis sometimes. And so as we go to the journal questions and reflection for today, number 1, what is the biggest fear you have about allowing yourself to be seen? Number 2, do you feel that you know sufficiently enough about who you are to express yourself to others? Do you feel comfortable and relaxed and at ease when you're with others? Is it a sign of social anxiety, shyness, introversion, or just fear, for example? And number 3, what are some ways that you can begin this weekend, in allowing yourself to be yourself? What does it mean for you to be yourself? What are the fears that you hold from being yourself? And how you promised yourself to allow yourself to be more of yourself? That's it for today. As always, thanks for being here. Take care of yourself, and please do be well. Welcome back. Now, this is the third and final section of the daily podcast. This is your silent meditation. Please find a place where you can be comfortable and undisturbed, where you can relax and spend some time with yourself for this 10-minute silent meditation. You can choose to be sitting, standing, lying down, or in whatever position makes you comfortable today. Just take some time to listen to yourself. Next, be sure that you are taking some time to be with your breath to connect with your body. Don't be disturbed or overwhelmed by your thoughts. Simply allow them to pass. Just observe them. Do not engage with your thoughts. Only be mindful of them passing, as if they are drifting down a river. Use this time to connect with yourself. Whatever time of day you are listening to this, Namaste.